Summer camp is supposed to be a place for fun. Campfires, swimming, making friends, and sleeping under the stars. But for some people, their camp memories aren't happy ones, because when you're out in the woods, far from home, surrounded by darkness, sometimes you realize you're not as alone as you thought. These are 3 true scary summer camp stories. I was 16 when I worked my first summer job as a junior counselor at a camp in upstate New York. Our cabin sat near the edge of the campgrounds, just a few steps from the tree line. During the day, it felt normal, kids laughing, campfires, lake swims. But once night fell, the woods took on a different character, silent, watching. The first night, one camper whispered that he saw a man standing by the tree line. I brushed it off, but the next morning, a different kid mentioned the same thing, a tall man, just standing there. That afternoon, as I led the kids to the lake, I saw him too, a figure half hidden among the trees, completely still. The moment I blinked, he was gone. I tried to convince myself I imagined it, until that night. Lying awake, I heard footsteps crunching on the gravel outside, slow, deliberate. I froze, waiting for someone to pass by, but no one did. Then, from deep in the forest came a whistle, long, low, almost playful. The next night, one of the kids woke me around 2 a.m. She swore someone was tapping on the window. I was about to tell her to sleep when I heard it too. 3 soft taps, then silence. I shined my flashlight outside, but the woods looked empty. What made my stomach drop were the footprints in the dirt, bare, human footprints pointing directly at the cabin. The following day, I asked another counselor, Eric, if he'd noticed anything strange. His face went pale. "You too," he said. His cabin had the same problem. Kids talking about a man in the woods, windows being tapped on, whistling in the dark. We told the head counselor, but she brushed it off as paranoia. That night, the whistling returned. Only this time, it circled the cabin. Every kid woke up, clutching their sleeping bags as the sound drifted from one wall to another. Then came a heavy knock at the door. I shouted, "Who's there?" but got no response. Another knock, harder. Then the whistle, right outside. One of the girls screamed, pointing at the back window. My heart stopped. Pressed against the glass was a pale face with stringy black hair. His wide, unblinking eyes stared straight at us. His mouth stretched into a grin that didn't move. The second my flashlight beam hit him, he was gone. But the whistling didn't stop. It spread. From behind the cabin, from the side, from the woods all around us. It sounded like there were more than one of him. The kids were sobbing. I locked every latch, closed every shutter, and sat with my back against the door until daylight. When the sun rose, the footprints were gone, like he'd never been there. But every child swore they saw him too. The camp never called the police. Parents pulled their kids early, whispering about letters home describing the tall man in the woods. Still, the head counselor insisted it was just campfire gossip. I quit the next day. I couldn't take another night of pretending. But a year later, Eric messaged me. He'd spoken with one of the new counselors, who laughed nervously when asked if anything weird ever happened. His exact words, "You mean the man in the woods?" "Yeah. Everyone talks about him. To this day, kids wake up to tapping on their windows. Counselors hear the whistling at night. And sometimes, someone swears they see him standing at the tree line, watching, waiting. No one knows who he is. No one knows what he wants. But sometimes, when I lie awake in my own bed, I hear that whistle in my head, and I pray it stays only in memory, because if I ever hear it outside my window, I'll know he's found me again. Before starting the next story, if you like my work, please like the video and subscribe the channel. I was 14 when I went to summer camp for the first time. It wasn't one of those luxury camps with fancy cabins. It was old, tucked deep into the woods, with creaky bunks and doors that didn't always shut right. At night, the counselors told us ghost stories around the fire. What none of us knew then was that something far worse than a ghost was already waiting for us. It started the 3rd night. My cabin mates and I were playing cards by flashlight when we heard the screen door creak. The counselors always locked it, so when it opened on its own, we froze. After a moment, we heard slow footsteps on the wooden porch, then Silence. One of the boys laughed nervously and whispered, "It's probably just Eric messing with us." But none of us dared open the door. We eventually convinced ourselves it was the wind. The next morning, though, we noticed something strange. The cabin door had scratches along the frame, not claw marks, deep, jagged gouges like someone dragging a knife through the wood. That night, the noises came back. This time it wasn't the door. It was the sound of someone walking around the cabin, circling it slowly. The crunch of gravel. Then nothing. Then the creak of the porch boards again. We all stayed dead silent, clutching our blankets. Then came the tapping. 3 slow knocks on the window, inches from where we were huddled. When I dared to look, I saw a pale hand pressed against the glass. Long fingers, dirty nails. I screamed, and the flashlight beam hit the window, but the hand was gone. The counselors didn't believe us. They said it was probably another camper trying to scare us. But we knew. The hand was too big, too adult. The following night, our counselor decided to sleep in the cabin with us just in case. For a while, it felt safe. But around 2 a.m., the tapping came back. Louder this time. The counselor jumped up, shined his flashlight, and yanked open the door. Nothing. The woods were dead silent, except for a faint crunching in the distance like footsteps retreating into the trees. We thought it was over, until the counselor swore under his breath and pointed to the ground. Just outside the cabin were boot prints, huge muddy boot prints circling the porch. The next day, camp security combed the area but found nothing. They told us to stay calm, that we were safe, but that night I learned just how wrong they were. I woke to the sound of breathing, not snoring. Breathing. Heavy, deliberate, and close. I sat up slowly, shining my small flashlight across the bunks, and that's when I saw him. A man, standing inside the cabin. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his clothes filthy, his face hidden in shadow. He stood at the far end of the room, not moving, just staring at us. I froze, unable to scream. Then the counselor jolted awake, spotted him, and shouted. The man bolted for the door, sprinting into the woods. The police were finally called. They searched the forest for 2 days, but never found him. The only thing they discovered was a campsite deep in the woods, filled with scraps of food, a torn sleeping bag, and knives. The camp never officially told parents what happened. They said it was a security scare, nothing more. But we all knew the truth. Someone had been watching us. Someone had been inside our cabin. Years later, I still wonder what would have happened if I hadn't woken up, if I hadn't seen him standing there, just watching us sleep. When I was 15, I worked as a lifeguard at a summer camp in Maine. The lake was the centerpiece of the camp, huge, still, surrounded by thick forest. Every day the kids swam, canoed, and splashed around, but by the end of that summer, no one wanted to go near the water again. It started on a hot afternoon when a group of kids were swimming near the dock. One of them suddenly screamed, saying something brushed his leg underwater. I told him it was probably a fish, but when I blew my whistle and told everyone to climb out, 2 kids swore they saw a boy under the dock. I checked. No one was there. That night, one of the campers in my cabin whispered to me. He said he'd seen a boy standing at the end of the dock after lights are out. A boy who wasn't from our camp. He described him as pale, dripping wet, with dark circles under his eyes. The kid said the boy just stared before stepping back into the lake and disappearing under the surface. The next day, more kids claimed to see him. Some said they heard splashing in the middle of the night, even though no one was allowed near the water after dark. Others said they heard crying from the direction of the dock. At first, I thought it was just campfire rumors spreading like a ghost story. But then I saw him. It was just after sunset. I was locking up the equipment shed when I glanced at the dock. There, standing ankle deep in the water, was a boy. His clothes hung heavy, soaked, like he had just climbed out of the lake. His skin looked pale, almost gray in the fading light. I called out, thinking it was one of the campers, but when he turned his head, I froze. His eyes were cloudy, unfocused, like he hadn't slept in years. Before I could take a step closer, he stepped backward into the lake, without a splash. The water rippled once and went still. The following day, the camp director pulled all the lifeguards aside. She told us not to talk about what we'd seen. She admitted that years ago, a boy had drowned in that same lake. He was around the same age as our campers. His body had never been found. That night, I woke up to the sound of water dripping. I sat up and froze. Standing in the middle of the cabin was the boy. His clothes clung to him, dripping onto the floorboards. His head tilted slightly, his mouth opening and closing like he was trying to breathe. Before I could move, he pointed at me. Then he pointed toward the lake, and just like that, he was gone. The next morning, the counselors found wet footprints across the cabin floor, leading from the door to my bed and back out again. For the rest of the summer, I avoided the dock at night. I never swam in the lake again. And to this day, whenever I'm near dark water, I can't shake the feeling that he's still down there, waiting for someone else to join him. Summer camps are meant to bring kids together, to give them experiences they'll never forget. But for the people in these stories, what they experienced will haunt them for the rest of their lives. If you ever find yourself at camp and you hear footsteps outside your cabin at night or whistling in the dark, just remember, you may not be the only one out there in the woods.